right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to City Hall. I'm Mayor Emma Mulvaney-Stanek. I'm pleased to be with all of you here this morning. I'll introduce the staff in just a minute, but I wanted to just open with just a couple opening and brief remarks because the real purpose of this is to be able to have a dialogue and to really listen to folks who have come out this morning, the dialogue around our downtown and specifically the Great Street Main Streets project. I really want to emphasize that this morning, this has really evolved in terms of what it was originally designed to be. And I just want to be clear that the focus on this is to be a dialogue. Even though we're sitting in Contoys, this is not, we are not set up for this to be a formal public forum. And that's just important as city because public forum usually for the city includes different kind of parameters and setup and notice and whatnot. That's not how we originally designed it. We wanted to make sure we accommodated this so everyone could have a place to sit and have dialogue. So we'll still reach the same goals, but I just want to make sure people understand the technical difference of a public forum, which this was not warned to be, but we still intend to have a dialogue. And so the other piece I want to make sure that I offer to folks, much like how mayor meetups go, which is a weekly meeting I hold throughout the community, there are more chairs up front, which you can feel free to come get, and I'm sure staff will make sure there's more chairs for folks in the back as you keep filtering in. But in terms of the mayor meetup, I always offer guidelines, and I'll ask that for the space here this morning. And the guidelines are really, when I'm, as the mayor, holding meetings with folks and having community dialogue, I really want to emphasize dialogue is how we build best community and making sure we can listen to understand, make space to be able for staff to be able to share their professional expertise and answer questions fully for folks. We're always in a deep listening mode here at the City of Burlington because we understand deeply the impact that's going on. Obviously, those of us who work here in City Hall are right up against the street that we'll be talking about today and have a front row seat to what's going on in the downtown alongside you. And we also hear and engage with you frequently outside of meetings like this and understand this is deeply impactful. This is a big project. We'll go into the details more in a couple minutes. And I want to emphasize we know this is hard and we know the impact on our local economy is significant while we double into the investments of what's coming next for Burlington. So while we acknowledge that, I want to make sure that this space is a place where we can have dialogue. And if we get to a place that things get sticky, I'll use that word, just keep it real neutral. I will pause so we can just bring the temperature down to get back to a place where we can have dialogue. I really want to lead the city forward for a place where that is what we model in these spaces and not a place that goes in a different direction because we're seeing that on the federal level and we will do better here in Burlington. And I'm sure you're all in it with me on that together at that moment and I'll lightly facilitate if we even get there, which I trust we won't have to. So today, again, our focus is more deep listening, but we're going to start with a brief presentation by DPW and some of the colleagues at the table with me who I'll introduce in a second. This will include some significant milestone updates for you and some high-level, probably very common questions that we hear the most about this project, so folks can start with a baseline common understanding of where we are and where we're headed. Then we'll spend most of the time doing Q&A with folks, and we'll have a mic of some sort. I've lost where Joe McGee went, but we'll have a mic. There he is. Going around. Again, different space, so different tech setup we did last minute here. It is being recorded by Town Meeting TV, although this is not being streamed. They are recording it for posting again back to the public forum. This was not set up to be a formal public forum like a city council meeting. And in those Q&A, we just asked, there's a lot of people here, so to keep it to questions so we can get information out, that's the mission for today. And of course, there's multiple ways to still engage with us outside of today. So with that, I think I hit everything I was intending to say. This team here, I'm actually going to let the team sort of just take over actually at this point because I'm not sure who is here to actually present versus be a resource. So I'll first hand it over to Chapin Spencer, our Director of Department of Public Works.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Good morning, everybody. What a great turnout. Thank you all for making the time here today. The Great Streets Main Street project, as you all know, is a transformational and ambitious project and one with impact. I want to thank all the different types of stakeholders we have here today. The contractor, SD Ireland, is here today with us. We have a number of city councilors here with us today, the Burlington Business Association, a number of business owners. This is going to be a good forum. This project, as many of you know, is about fundamental core infrastructure of the city. Right in front of me here is a potable drinking water main And you will see from it the tuberculation inside, and that over time, many of these pipes are the age and actually predate the Panama Canal and the Brooklyn Bridge. These present liabilities to all of us when we put our investment on top of that. So if we coordinate this work together and do it all from the bottom up, we are not going to have to touch this corridor again in our lifetimes. So I've appreciated the one-on-ones with many of you. This gives us a different forum. We're pleased to talk about the milestones and next steps. Our presentation is about 10 slides. We're going to get through this in 15 minutes to leave the bulk of the time for Q&A. So if people need to leave to open up their stores at 10 o'clock, we have a couple staff members, Maddie Swender and Peter Procaccio, who will be in the hallway here to get your questions and concerns. Not only is the meeting recorded, but we'll be writing down questions and putting out a written response to everybody after the meeting. As I said before, bathrooms are downstairs. I'll be moderating the Q&A, but I'll kick off the presentation. We have with me here Laura Wheelock, our city engineer, Kara Al-Nasrawi, the Director of Business and Workforce Development, Megan Moyer, who's the Division Director for Water Resources, and I've already introduced Maddie and Pete. So with that, let's kick off the presentation. All right, as you'll see here, this is a quick overview, yes, of the street typology here. Not only is the underground work being done, but the fit and finish will transform the public space, as we've seen with Great Street, St. Paul Street, and City Hall. You're noticing wider sidewalks, amenity belts with trees and activation. You're noticing on-street parking instead of the diagonal parking. It will be parallel parking and then travel lanes. You'll see on the bottom here the additional kind of space for businesses to have activity on the streets and the public to enjoy the public space. Next. This is an opportunity here to talk about what collectively we have done to date, and it is significant. To orient yourself north, is up on the screen you see City Hall Park up at the top. In the solid lines are work that we have completed. Let's start first with the ravine sewer. Maddie's going to highlight that corridor for you. That is the 150-year-old sewer that was placed at the bottom of the historic ravine in Burlington. And as you notice, it cross-cuts properties and runs underneath buildings. This sewer, as we have discussed times before, is being bypassed and abandoned. And much of that work has been accomplished. As you're seeing in the solid lines, the ravine sewer bypass, which Maddie, if you can highlight in pink here, the bypass itself that goes down Main Street and then Lower Church Street is constructed. And I am pleased to say, as of the end of next week or the beginning of the following, the ravine sewer will be diverting all of the flows to the bypass into the public right-of-way. This is a huge milestone. This has been one of the most complex parts, the most complex part of this project. In addition to that work, we have completed sewer work on Lower Main Street, and you're seeing in solid blue, we've completed water main work on the lower 2 blocks of the project area and on King Street. In addition, the green dashed areas next to City Hall Park and North Star Sports are the stormwater tanks that are in active construction and are proceeding well. So this gives you an overall view of the project. It includes Main Street and additional parts of our downtown. Next. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Senior Engineer Laura Wheelock. Sorry, City Engineer.
Thank you. So to talk about, and Chapin hit on it a little bit, some of the successes that we've already completed to date. First, starting with some of our soft mitigation items, we subsidized parking at the Courthouse Plaza. This is to support the on-street spaces that are lost for construction activities. Additionally, as mentioned, we're about to disconnect the ravine sewer that crosscuts several parcels. Part of this flow has already been moved over from behind the fire station, and the remainder that comes down from the hill section should be done late next week or early the following week. Looking a little bit ahead, the Main and Winooski intersection, which has been part of this disconnection and construction area to be able to move the water across that parcel in a different way, this lot should reopen in about a month for public parking. Lower Church Street, which has been part of the impacted area from the ravine sewer, is also getting a bit of a facelift. It had a facelift about 15 years ago. This section of the street, as it approaches Main Street, is going to become curbless, so it is a more flexible space. It can accommodate other uses. It could be sought as an event area. This work will be finished this summer. Additionally, looking a little further ahead towards the end of this year, highlighting the fact that there won't be any winter work over this coming winter. It was certainly a challenging aspect working through this winter. I think that's one of the reasons why many people are here this year, or here today, but highlighting that that's not going to occur again under this project. Next. So to get into just a little bit more detail, sometimes pictures help to explain the work that is remaining. Starting in the top left, we have more water work to do. To the pipe that sits on the table, to the work that we started last year, we are replacing some very old water lines through the city. These are really critical backbone pieces of infrastructure. It is complicated. It looks tiny in the picture, but that's a 16-inch pipe that's in the ground there. And we have a 16 and a 10 to continue to do. The next work activity that, just to finish off, this is the work that occurs from Church Street up through about mid-block between Winooski and Union. Both water lines, both sides of the street in that length is planned for this summer. Next work activity will start first down near Pine Street, and this is removing the existing road subbase. I don't know if anybody's looked out their front door. The city didn't make a lot of good choices about what to put to support our road in the past. We have bricks, we have concrete, we have trolley ties, we have clay. These are not traditional construction materials. And so the picture on the bottom left shows an example from when we did St. Paul Street. We need to remove this really poor material and replace it with something that will drain. This will help preserve our road subbase. This meets modern construction techniques. It is an activity that's important to do curb to curb. And so that means keeping the road closed to vehicle traffic to get a higher quality product. The next work activity that these blocks between Pine and Church Street will start to see is the finishes. You'll start to see curb go in this spring. On those two blocks, you will start to see concrete sidewalks, a concrete bike lane, prep for landscaping, maybe not trees this season, but certainly early next year. Next. So just to provide some points of clarification, there's been a few questions that are out there to the department. We've answered them one-on-one with individual businesses and other folks, but we want to make sure it's broadly known. The contract end date that we went into this work with the city council approval, the signing of the contract with SD Ireland is November of 2026. This remains unchanged, regardless of how the work appears to have moved, proceed, and is occurring today. We, as a department, meet with SD Ireland weekly. We'll have 3-week look-aheads to really kind of understand the minute details as to what the work is going to involve, how the traffic control plan evolves, what pedestrian management looks like. This is what we use to base our updates to businesses on, as well as the broader public. We have an email list of over 600 individuals, a composition of businesses and residents that have signed up looking for this information to be received weekly. Another point of clarification is SD Ireland, under the terms of our agreement, are allowed to close 2 blocks of Main Street. They were allowed to do this starting in February of last year, and they're allowed to do it today. They have not had two blocks closed this entire time. They have worked very strategically in and throughout the street, closing what is necessary and giving back the space that is not being used. They have done surgical work within our intersections, which underground have an immense amount of complexity with the underground utilities that we own that are aging, as well as other communication companies, the power, and our stormwater. So what I do want to highlight, thinking about everything we just discussed above, is we have worked with businesses. We have heard you. We have worked with SD Ireland to provide flexibility in their traffic control plan. And what does this look like? This looks like opening up in front of the Flynn and maintaining a mid-block crossing in the middle of their construction zone. That's not easy to do in a safe way. But they did this because they heard the Flynn. We need this accommodation. It's not going to be safe letting our pedestrians out. When the construction allowed, we moved that mid-block crossing down near the burn gallery as they said, hey, we have some important times coming up. Can we get a crossing down here? We accommodated that. This looks like last fall when we had several businesses asking us, can we keep on-street parking on Main Street despite the really deep ravine sewer coming towards us? We accommodated that. These are the types of things that are meant by this last statement. We are being flexible where we can and where it's safe. Some of our other outstanding questions: why can we not have one-way westbound? The first is the agreement that we signed our contract with, the up to two block closure of Main Street. Additionally, the work to date and even the remaining work is hard to do in a one-way condition. It is truly in the best interest of the city, the businesses, and the residents to keep the street closed where the construction is occurring. The street out there is primarily gravel right now. A gravel street over the summer is hard to maintain. It is a lot of dust. It is noise. There is actually not enough space to include on-street parking. And so what do? You get nothing but vehicles bypassing the construction zone, heading to a destination on the other side. We do feel that we can maximize circulation and parking by keeping the blocks closed that we strategically need to work in and leaving the other spaces open. We've also been asked about Saturday work. We are starting to look at this with SD Ireland. They did work probably 2 Saturdays total in the contract, and that was strategically to get things open. This past weekend was to ensure that the Main and Winooski intersection was going to be open, safe, and traversable. So this is something that we're still ongoing, and it's something actually I think we want your feedback. When we came to everybody before the contract started, businesses were super clear. We want our nights, we want our weekends, we want to be able to do our business without construction noise outside. If that feeling has changed, let's have a conversation. And then lastly, just kind of a reminder, we do put out weekly updates about the construction work. We do try to put out a 3-week update to businesses for any major changes in traffic control. If this is not reaching you effectively, please let us know if there's other points of contacts or if there's other better ways to reach out. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Cara.
On the business support side, because we do recognize how disruptive this project is for our businesses, my department applied for and secured a $25,000 downtown vibrancy grant from the state of Vermont, specifically to be used for marketing purposes. Some of the ways we have spent this funding is paid print advertising in 7 days in the Bang newspaper. So those are our neighboring communities, Shelburne, Charlotte, South Burlington, Williston, to encourage some of those shoppers and diners to continue to come downtown, and then also in our North Ave news, which ends up in every resident's mailbox. We've also done a lot of paid digital advertising, 7 days, Instagram and Facebook. Radio, Star 92.9, we have taken ads out in. We have a page on our Love Burlington site. Burlington is open. You can see a bit of it there on the screen. We've had thousands of views on this page. It is a construction support page. It gives high-level project overviews and highlights our Main Street businesses. We also mention the impacted businesses and the construction in our newsletter, which currently goes out bi-monthly and has a subscriber base of 25,000 recipients. On our Instagram and Facebook, primarily Love Burlington, but also the Church Street Marketplace, we have Main Street business features that get extra attention and special love, so to speak, and with construction call-out impacts on those posts. We have weekly and bi-weekly stories highlighting our Main Street businesses. In addition, I do want to highlight the collaboration that we have with DPW. So my team and DPW's team meet every single week to discuss the project and to share any feedback either team has gotten from businesses and how we can better accommodate them. We created a reel for Instagram and Facebook. It was a collaboration with DPW. It was on where to park during construction. That had 16,000 views to date. We also did a project video with our city engineer, Laura Wheelock, and put that up through our Love Burlington channels. To date, that has 15,000 views. And we've paid for things like a large banner on Church and Main when, if you can remember, there was a fence up there that was sort of blacked out. And we heard from businesses that there was a sense that pedestrians were stopping on that last block and not visiting businesses on Main Street. So we paid for banners. We have worked with our Department of Permitting and Inspections to loosen some of our regulations around signage and sandwich boards to allow these businesses to place more signage and sandwich boards out there and at the construction intersections to highlight the businesses. And we also did a team project where we painted the sidewalks as with wayfinding art in a colorful manner to try and encourage pedestrians to keep walking, because pedestrian access to these businesses has always been maintained. We have also reached out to other cities outside of Vermont. Well, I will start by saying before the project started, we did reach out to Middlebury, who had a large project of their own that was extremely impactful to their business community, to better understand how they managed it and to learn from mistakes that maybe they made. My team has recently been in contact with Denver to discuss some of the impacts of a large project they have going on their 16th Street Mall, and trying to learn and get ideas from them as well. And that's pretty much it for my updates at the moment.
All right, great. We would like to pivot to the important Q&A here. And Joe, we have a microphone. So Joe has got the microphone. We'd like to get hands for people who are interested in speaking. And then we'd ask you to make your comment and give time for other people to also have a chance to weigh in as well.
Okay, we've got a short cord here, so if folks could just step up to the mic, that would be great.
When you say there's no construction for the months of winter, what exact months is that? Can be more in detail.
So no winter work was the question. What months is that defined as? That would start no later than November 21st, 2025. So that's the Friday before Thanksgiving. And it would go through likely March of 2026.
And during that time, the condition is two-way traffic, all intersections open.
By closing for the winter or stop construction for the winter, will that prolong the project any longer?
No, so this winter shutdown is part of the proposal that we received in the bid from SD Ireland, as well as the other bidder who participated in that procurement. The work that is anticipated that will remain at this point in time is not work that you would do while the ground is frozen. They are finishes, they are temperature sensitive. So it's unlikely that we would even receive a request as long as everything is on schedule.
just gonna step up here. I got a quick question. I wrote it out. I'm nervous talking in front of everyone. I got a shaky voice, so I wrote it out.
You're doing
I wrote
fine.
this morning when I woke up. I was drinking some orange juice from Cafe Hot. It was really good.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote this really quick. It's a quick question, just one question. Not everyone in these streets are homeless. Not everyone in these streets is a fiend. Not everyone in these streets is a washed up drunkie. Some of us out here really got motion. Some of us out here are really actually making money. Today we're in City Hall because we've earned our stripes and rank up in this game. I got love for the streets and the streets love me. It's 2025 and on my feet today, I'm stepping out in some Air Jordan 1s. These so old that there's beginning to be holes on the bottom of them. I'm stepping out at City Hall in an outfit worth more than my rent. And you're hearing the voice of a 24-year-old record producer, renowned chef, and lifelong Vermonter. I had to step out today at 9 a.m. to bring you the voice of the people. And I got a question, Vermont, if you really want to listen. Why should someone like me have to walk to City Hall with their head down? And this is the one thing I'm going to say. This is my one question. And so before I say it again, I'm going to pause for a dramatic effect. Pause. Why should someone like me have to walk to City Hall with their head down? Well, breaking news, people. I got like $500 in unpaid City of Burlington parking tickets. I can barely afford to keep putting gas into my 6-speed 2010 4x4 V6 SR5 Toyota Tacoma with the access cab and extended bed that I got with a loan from East Rise Credit Union off of City Hall. That's formerly known as VSECU. Breaking news, people. I had to walk here in Air Jordan 1 so old that the soles are beginning to break. There's so much blood, trash, and broken glass
Sir,
piled up on Main
Get to the
Street.
question that you have for us? That would be wonderful.
There's so much blood, trash, and broken glass piled up on Main Street that if I'm not watching where I'm going, it means with one false move, I run the risk of stepping on something that will straight up cut my feet open.
Sir, can you get to your question, please?
Why should someone like me have to walk to City Hall with their head down? My name's Nick Gamble. I live in Burlington since 2020. And to you politicians here in the room, I ain't got nothing to thank none of you for. All glory be to God. Free Aaliyah, free Cartel, free Brazy, free Rico, free Buka, free Chris, free EP, and all the earners.
Sir, can we get to the question so that there's a lot of other people?
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate the input. Are there others who have questions?
Thank you so much. I just have a quick clarifying question, and then I would like to pass the mic. Can you clarify for Main Street, you mentioned no work past winter. Are you expecting that it will continue through November 21st at its current capacity with the closures?
The on-street work will, as it has over the past few months, several months, about a year, over a year now, it'll just change. As the work needs different areas, they will close up to 2 blocks at a time. The work facing, that's approaching for April is water work between Church and Winooski, and then road work between Pine and St. Paul. So it'll move along as the work moves through the street. But yes, they will be working Monday through Friday, 7 to 6-ish. It has been generally their work hours with significant road reconstruction and utility work.
Thank you. I think it's really important that we hear from the businesses that are most impacted by this. I would love to pass the mic over to Travis if you want to chat.
Great.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate City Hall. We appreciate SDI coming. Thank you very much. We've been uniquely impacted, as you all know. We've been working with you guys for over a year. So to Magda's point, if we're going to have a street closure on both sides of the street through to November 2021, potentially this is not so much a question, and I apologize for that, but it feels like we're sacrificing the present for the future. It is something where this has been incredibly impactful, and we know that you guys have been making efforts. We see those efforts, but unfortunately, as anyone on Main Street can tell you, those efforts really aren't making the impact that they need to. We're hurting. The city at large is hurting, especially as we're expecting more closures on Pine. We have closures now on South Union. So again, less of a question, but the outcome of today should be that we're getting some sort of commitment from the city saying that we are going to do more. I know we're talking with cities outside of here, which I think is really important. We really celebrate that. That's great. Seeking grants, that's great. But the rest of the efforts feel like things that we should already be doing, and not having a one-way. I know that it makes it harder, but we will continue to support a westbound one-way, getting people into the city, even if they can't park, just get them in, having people be able to get in, and having Main Street continue to be closed through November is a grim proposition, frankly. Thank you very much for listening. We really appreciate you guys doing this. Thank you so much. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Travis, and we will continue to do so.
So just to continue to provide some clarifying points on what was said. The street closure is generally vehicular traffic. Bicycles can move around, pedestrians can move around. These are goals that our city has of keeping bike and ped movements moving through the city. It is not 100% closures. When the curb work goes through on the lower 2 blocks, there's going to be base course paving, which means the work moves from being in the center of the street to the pedestrian areas. Still maintaining access to businesses, but that gives different circulation opportunities. The one-way westbound, and I briefed over the slides because I don't love reading word for word through slides. This option would require the city to find new funding. It would cost at least $500,000 to be able to extend the work, increase the traffic control, to be able to do this. This is money that the city doesn't have on hand. We would have to sacrifice other improvements to be able to afford this. It also extends the work about a year to be able to do the work in these phases of keeping one lane open. So these are some significant choices. They're not things to turn around and do tomorrow. They have real impacts both on the businesses as well as on the financial commitments of the city and all of its residents.
Other questions?
Forgive me if this has been asked at meetings before, but are there any financial relief options to the businesses that are being most impacted right now?
I will start off and say there are collective efforts. The city is subsidizing parking at the Courthouse Plaza to around $70,000 a year. So there's 86 spaces underneath Courthouse Plaza available at city rates. Director Al-Nasraoui went through some of the promotional efforts. Kara, is there anything in particular you'd like to share?
Yes, so the city does have a 0% revolving loan fund, and there are some funds still available there. I believe, Travis, we spoke to you about the Kiva option for that, for a refrigerator or freezer, I think. And you can reach out to my office. It's on our website. And so, you know, there is an application process. There is a review committee, of course, an underwriting committee. But currently, we are offering the 0% loan fund. We do not have grant funding. That is simply not available. The only funding we were able to secure from the state was this funding to be used for marketing.
And I'm going to, hold on, please, thank you. And I'm just going to add on to that, just as the mayor I encourage folks to look at the presentation we offered to the City Council on Monday around the state of city finances. When I began to be mayor almost a year ago, we had a $14 million budget gap for our operating budget for our general fund. That is a sizable gap on about $100 million budget to operate the city. We continue to have structural gaps, and the upcoming fiscal year for fiscal year 26 also has a structural gap. So just to really put a fine point on this, we're going to have to start to reduce staff and services. This is really hard work for the city. This is on top of knowing what our revenues and trying to be responsible around all the additional chaos, frankly, that's around us with tariffs, impacts on patterns from the federal government around federal grants. We are not in a very strong financial state as the city of Burlington, the state of Vermont, the country for that matter. So I just want to give people that context that while we still have this revolving loan fund, which is a commitment for the city itself is really having to make some tough right-sizing decisions related to our city finances.
Thank you. I'm Andrea Todd. I'm not a business owner, but I love Burlington a lot. And I see and walk around and see the businesses suffering and coming and going in this period of time. This Great Streets project is not new. We knew this was coming like 8-10 years ago. So I'm really disappointed that this hasn't been, that we weren't talking to cities 2 years ago, that we weren't talking about Plan B 5 years ago. That these are great things that are happening, but it seems like a reactive, based on businesses suffering, businesses wanting these things. But this predates Emma. This is a Moreau issue. This is a DPW and like a citywide problem that I'm like so sad that was not, and disappointed and frankly angry that we've known about this Great Streets project. We've known that this is coming, that there wasn't more proactive investigations in how other cities are handling this, if we that we weren't reaching out to businesses in advance to find out what they needed to be able to survive, and that there wasn't a clearer picture of if things went over time or if there wasn't a delay. So that's where I'm starting my feelings about this, and those to me are avoidable. The other piece is, as a resident, I want to shop here too. I love this place. We want people to be able to come and go, but I can't get in and out of town easily. This is not an easy moment in Burlington to even navigate getting out of town and in town, whether you're a resident or you're a visitor. And I'm curious, this is one of my questions, but I'm curious if there's been any interest and any work on changing the timing of the lights from DPW just to facilitate people moving more easily in and out of town. That doesn't seem to be present when I look at every intersection on College Street, every intersection on Pearl Street, every intersection on any street in Burlington right now. From 3 o'clock until 6 o'clock, you cannot get in and out of town without major traffic. That also seems avoidable to me, and it means if you're a resident, you don't want to come in, you don't want to get in your car to move around the city. If you're a visitor, why would you want to come and sit in traffic? So I didn't hear any of that in any of the conversations about things that are happening to alleviate this pressure. And then I guess my other question is, I emailed with Kara and Chapin recently, but I want to ask this publicly too. Why isn't there any, I asked this to Chapin at a Public Works meeting over a year ago. 87 parking spaces, awesome. But where is there a facilitation of shuttle buses, getting people in and out of the city, park and rides at Staples Plaza, making it so you don't need a car in Burlington? The answer to that was that's like a park and ride problem, that's a bigger picture, that's a longer term thing. We need more people to be able to draw more people. And my question is, why wasn't that thought about 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and we knew this was coming, but why can't that be something? I know, Kara, you said that that's something you bring to the community, but where is the creative thinking about getting people in and out of Burlington without a car? Because the cars can't move. Thank you.
Great. Andrea, thank you for your passion for the city. We continue to share those conversations. As it relates to when we approached other communities, we've been talking with VTrans, Middlebury, Barry, and Waterbury well in advance of this project. Yes, there are ongoing reach outs and conversations that are more recent as we're trying to find additional approaches, but the subsidized parking, the promotional efforts, the website updates. We have also invested in this project. We haven't talked about this, but in a communications consultant that we are paying to make sure that those weekly updates with updated traffic control and maps are given to folks weekly. This is an investment that we believe is really important to help. This is a best practice around the country. As it relates to signal timing, I'm going to let Laura address that.
I appreciate your forward thinking. I think it's why we have such in-depth conversations. We have looked at the signal timing, and unfortunately, just based on the age of the assets, which is the signals both on College and Winooski and College and Willard, those are some of our oldest infrastructure for signals. We had to turn off the College and Winooski signal during the paving from VTrans 2 years ago. We were lucky to get that to turn back on. These are signals that don't offer the modern dynamicness that some of our newer signals, newer controllers do. We are lucky that they are running at the moment. We are working on finding ways to upgrade that, but as the mayor has spoken to, these assets are expensive to replace and the budgets are small for that. I do just want to quickly address the shuttle bus. During our planning phases of the project, we heard this option presented from residents and this question asked. We asked GMT what it was going to cost to run a shuttle bus, and it was over $250,000 a year. Knowing this project needed to go 3 years, it didn't seem like the right direction to be able to go affordability-wise.
That's creating a solution. There's all kinds of other ways to be shuttling people. Airport shuttles, hotel shuttles. That's to me a disappointing answer.
Thanks, Andrea, and I know we have spoken a few times. I just wanted to address that businesses were approached years before construction started to get their input on what their needs were. A shuttle was not one of the top priorities. As City Engineer Wheelock mentioned before, one of the top priorities was to not have construction occurring on the weekends, so there would be no dust or noise or disruption. While a project is long, and once you're in it, it definitely feels longer than it does on paper before you start. Some of these ideas that are coming up again, we're happy to revisit. I just want to be clear that we had dozens of conversations with businesses over years prior to groundbreaking. And we still remain flexible right now and trying to pivot. And an example of that, I believe, is this meeting right now. So just trying to give that historical perspective.
Other questions?
Hi, Tito from Burn Gallery. And thank you all for coming too. It's a big deal. And so if I have to hear it, I don't go to Burlington anymore when I'm out and about. It's like the most depressing comment I hear. It's all the time. And we did meet. We met a lot before the project, and that was great. But what's happening now is it's just a lot of stuff just isn't panning out the way we thought it would. And as much spending as there is to do, our friends at Cafe Hot, it's sending a message with that spending that it feels like we're sacrificing the present for the future, and then it kind of feels like the project is the most important thing, and that if these businesses are here when it's over, well, there'll be new businesses that'll come in and downtown will be fine. That's kind of the vibe, and so it's like, how can we get financial compensation for demonstrable losses for our businesses to get us to the other side?
Thanks, Tito. I think what you heard from Cara and Business Workforce, we will continue to look. If we can find new tools and new levers, we will employ them. So I appreciate your call to say, okay, what we've done to date may have been well-intentioned, may have some impact, but you want more impact. So, heard. Others?
I do just want to, again, please, I want you to hear what I'm saying around reiteration of the state of the city finances is real. This is real, and it is going to be impactful. It's also real and impactful when we don't address the infrastructure investments we need to have, because that creates emergency fixes and costs, which spike more expenses to the city that are not within our budget, and that continues to be crushing. Not only crushing on the financial expense side of things, of course, but you're on operations of the actual functions of the city. I've lived in Burlington almost 20 years, and the number of water main breaks that happen that impact drinking water, the number of breaks that happen with pipes, we have failed as a city for decades now to keep up with infrastructure. And so we have to make choices too at the same time. As much as we have to be focused on the present and the impact, of course, we can't forget about the future. I don't want to be living in a city where we still have major water break mains that impact the drinking water of downtown or anywhere in the city for that matter, as well as just the functionality of our main street and our core city, being able to build out the way we need for housing, critical housing goals that we need. The VFW Post building that's building critical affordable housing for veterans and others around the corner from here, right next to the memorial block, cannot be built without this infrastructure work we've been doing on the ravine that you saw in those earlier slides. So it is a very challenging and complex number of layers of competing needs, and this is not to minimize at all what the immediate impact is on businesses. We are holding complex and multiple things and hard things at the same time, and so part of what city leadership is charting a course, adapting where we can, but not losing that other critical need. We could have another forum tomorrow, and people will be here demanding about more housing and more ability to build housing, and we will be precluded from doing that if we also aren't doubling down on the infrastructure that must be addressed.
Thank you. I do thank you for putting this together, and I'm going to try to put my point across without getting emotional or anything like. But with the pushing of parking off the streets and into the parking garages that we've been told for the last several years that there's thousands of parking spots around the city, the one thing I'm hearing from everybody, and from people in the south end, people from the north end, they don't come downtown anymore. And I don't think it's necessarily because of the construction. The construction job is an exclamation point on what's going on in Burlington. The canceling of the Festival of Fools are things that work against us. Though that is a big weekend for all our businesses. It brings out thousands of people. It brings people to Burlington. It gives people a reason to come to Burlington. And we need more of those events. We need more of police in our parking garages, police on our streets. Because if you read anything now, if you read Reddit, you read anything, what is this? It's an open, you can just do drugs openly on the street. I don't see any police anywhere in sight. Those are the things that we have to really work on to get people's faith to come back down to Burlington. Burlington no one wants to go in that parking garage because you've got to push open a door where there's a junkie on the other side of the street, on the other side of the door. And I hear that all too often. Your cars get stolen in the parking garages. How many of them are happening? We're not policing our parking garages. I mean, no one feels safe coming down to Burlington. This construction job, everyone says, Mike, why aren't you? Because this isn't the big problem. This is the exclamation mark. This is what takes away the gravy. But what's really killing Burlington is the reputation we have, the defunding of the police, not having police on the streets. That is, everyone on up at this table knows 3 or 4 people that they talk to, and they say they don't come down to Burlington. And I see it in South End, and I'm like, why don't you come down to Burlington? This is your town. I'm not going down there. And these are people who vote all across the board, all over the place. But until we take care of the reputation of downtown, and until we clean up the streets, the panhandlers, the mental illness, God bless these people. And I understand that's a problem, and I thank God every day I wake up that I'm not part of this problem. I'm not part of it. But I'll tell you, this is just heartbreaking because I've been in business for 37 years, and the last 3 or 4 years have been the most difficult time ever being in business. I'm 58 years old. I thought I was going to be retiring, but guess what I'm doing? I'm working the grill at my deli 5, 6 days a week. This is not how I imagined that I'll be retiring. But really, we really need to do a better job in changing the reputation of Burlington, changing what happens on this street, having presence of police. You know, that's where we're going to start. And let's get this construction job done. And we need this stuff. We need the water. We need the sewage. We need all this sort of stuff. I will say the one thing that we don't need is to eliminate parking, to push them into parking garages. Thank you very much.
I was going to. I want to acknowledge that I speak with hundreds of businesses all the time, and I want to acknowledge everything that you're saying. I think in this room, we need to understand there are a confluence of challenges impacting our community. We have unaddressed mental health crises playing out on the street. We have unaddressed substance use disorder. We have an unprecedented amount of houseless individuals on our streets. And we have long-term reputational damage. And I actually would like to highlight the fact that the construction project is not the only, and I might even argue not even the main reason why there is a reduction in visitorship. I track gross receipts numbers. We have a system where we pay to track cell phones, so we understand the amount of visitors, and we understand that they are decreasing. A couple things. First of all, some of these large events like Festival of Fools cannot happen unless we have corporate sponsorship. Those corporate sponsorships did not come through this year. That is why that festival was canceled. And it is not because corporations are giving up on us, it is because they have decided to spend their money with local social service nonprofits to try to support some of those other issues that you brought up. It is an unintended consequence, however, of their attempt to support other sections of our society, and the unintended consequence is we had to cancel Festival of Fools. So just putting that out there. And I also want to acknowledge that we are in this together. So every negative media piece that comes out that someone in Shelburne or someone in Charlotte or someone in Williston reads reinforces their idea that they don't want to come to Burlington. Positive messaging is a large part of how we are going to solve this issue. It is a large part of my budget and the grant funding that I receive. I have also worked with some private philanthropists who are sponsoring ads about our downtown, who would like to remain nameless, but they are helping us get that messaging out. And I think it's important that we all assist in getting that messaging out as well. But in conclusion, I just want to say I do acknowledge what you're saying, and I do acknowledge that this problem is a multifaceted problem.
Well said. Thank you, Cara. In terms of timing here, it is 9:54. We have our two staff members who have moved into the hallway. If you have to go to set up your business, feel free to chat with them and we'll document your question, get you answers. And I see a number of hands up, so let's keep going. I think the goal here is to take another 15, 20 minutes. When we wrap up around 10:15, we will stay here for a moment to engage so that people can have one-on-one conversations. Next question.
I'm not going to repeat what you said or what some others have said, but I really appreciate your articulate expression of the status of things in the city. I too, as a business owner, we have Ski Rack and Patagonia Burlington. We're dealing with theft weekly. We're dealing with needles. We're dealing with having to put a gate up on our building that we don't even own. We're doing a lot of things that we can think of to be resilient and creative and problem solve the problem. But nobody coming in the door or few people coming in the door is a much bigger issue. And I hear it a lot. I'm not going downtown. I'm not going downtown. I'm not going downtown. I say things like, I go downtown almost every day and I come back and I'm fine. But I understand the safety concern. It is huge. Even though that's not the biggest part of our population, the impact of that smaller group of people. And I acknowledge the gentleman who spoke earlier with broken shoes. Not everybody's the same. And we tend to, as human beings, broad base typecast people in groups. People are different, each individual. We understand that. However, what you said, Cara, is absolutely correct. There's so many things happening at the same time, I agree. We are so supportive of Burlington being a beautiful, healthy, piped city. However, what are we going to do about surviving as a 55-plus-year-old business in this morass and confluence of trauma to the city? I don't know, but we can't sacrifice now because of the future, nor can we do the opposite. I just wanted to say that with emphasis. We need to find some other resources to help businesses survive this. Thank you.
I appreciate that, and if I could jump in just one moment. And I want there to be a level of understanding that the city of Burlington does not have a health department. There is no municipality in the state of Vermont that has a health department, which means we do not have access to federal health department funding. What the future of that funding is with the new administration is another question, but the support structures for our houseless, those suffering from mental health crises and substance use disorders, those support structures and that funding needs to come from the state. And that needs to come from the state down to the municipalities. The property taxes that you pay help us pave our roads, pay for our fire department, keep the lights on. But the funding we don't have, I would urge all of you to pay attention to what is happening in Montpelier right now. I am not trying to pass the buck. I am trying to make sure that people understand the complexities that are facing our community and the players at the table who can help support and solve those issues. Thank you.
Other questions? And if people can keep the comments short, we can hear from everybody. Thank you.
Hi, thank you guys for being here. I don't think it's any big question that this is no small task, doing all this construction. But you mentioned, I think everybody up there has mentioned that the one-way westbound road is a little hard to achieve, given because you have to, it's going to be north of what you said, $500,000. And you want to support the goals of infrastructure in the city. But I find it to be a little difficult that the infrastructure can't be done a bit slower. And thinking about how much money all the businesses around here have lost in the past over a year, is that really possible to achieve the infrastructure a bit slower while still supporting business? And I feel like right now the narrative is that it's not. And I think it very much is. So I guess my question is that, is it possible to support the businesses in a way that is constructive, that brings people in the city, that doesn't want to turn people away, that also supports the infrastructure goals of the city? Thank you.
I think we can go to the next question. I hear the point. We are looking at additional ways of resourcing this project. At this point, there is no additional update than what we've said today.
Hello. When a year ago we had meetings like this, you talked to the businesses about, you didn't have a scope of cost. You had no idea how much this project was actually going to cost until they got into it and found bad things. My question is, well, one part is you didn't know the scope of the cost, but you decided to do it anyway. And then my question is now, do you have any idea how much this project's actually costing, and do you have any idea how you're going to pay for it?
Yes, we did have an engineer's estimate and a clearer sense of the cost of this project. It was $25 million, and we put the project out to bid. The bids came in, we had two bids. One came in 50% higher than the engineer's estimate. The other one came in 100% higher than the engineer's estimate. As you all as business owners understand, this is an incredible inflationary environment, and we pivoted quickly to scale back the project, change the scope find different ways to do it to be able to make this project happen. One of the things we didn't talk about today is what funding we're using. The tax increment financing funding is a unique funding model that enables us to do this work without impacting your property taxes. The downside of that is it's a regulated model that said if we didn't incur debt and start construction when we did, the city would have lost all access to the entire $25 million. So had we not adjusted the scope, we would have lost everything. So these are a challenge, these are limits and complex projects that we need to balance a multitude of interests. And I agree with you. I would not have wanted to bid the project when we bid it, given the inflationary aspect of COVID, but that is what we had to deal with.
Why? Like, why? I mean,
had we not proceeded, there would have been no tax increment
you had to
financing.
spend a bunch of money. You had to use that money, but that doesn't really make any sense. You had to spend the money, so that's why you did it then.
The infrastructure is failing. We had secured money. There was no other money to repair the infrastructure.
First of all, Cara, thank you for all that you do. You've spoken about the city budget being a challenge, which obviously it is. We're all very well aware of that, and I think we can all appreciate that ourselves. But the trends in Burlington are not good. If you look at the data, it's showing that people are much less interested in visiting our downtown. They're much less interested in working in our downtown. If you look at office vacancy, and we're starting to see trends where people are much less interested in living downtown. If you look at residential data, all of that is just going to continue to contribute to the budget challenges, right? We have to make Burlington a place where people want to visit, where people want to work, and where people want to live. And it feels like we're not trending in that direction. Construction is an exclamation mark on that, but the issues are much broader than that. It's been made very clear to you today, but we're just watching the small business community bleed out here. And it's really sad. You know, these businesses they're really important to a lot of people's lives, not just us, but the restaurant where, you know, someone's had good times or met their spouse, or a retail store that's important to people. It's the fabric of the community, and we're just watching it bleed out.
Thank you, Jed. And you and I have had conversations, of course, as I have with a lot of you. We are in a very difficult time right now, but I also want to make sure that folks hear this, especially the media, that there is a bigger story about Burlington that's not being accurately told. And yes, we have a lot of highly visual things. We have high impact people that we're trying to solve around bringing their impacts on the community down. We're trying to roll out different parts of community safety. I hold community safety forums. I would encourage folks to come to those, to engage and hear those kind of specific updates. We're here on a very technical piece on Great Street, Main Streets. But the other part is that there are folks and aspects of local community who are doubling down and investing in Burlington, and a lot of that is not visual right now. And so back to telling an accurate story, understanding what's happening all around us that's not apparent right now is, of course, the city place development. There's housing coming online within a matter of months. There's investments happening in the old Y that you can't see, but it's happening internally. There's investments in the Memorial Block, which we gave a whole work session update again on that Monday City Council meeting. 2 local developers are doubling down their investment around making sure that Burlington has the kind of care and local commitment that is important for moving us forward. So again, what you're seeing visually now feels very hard and is very hard, but I want to make sure people understand the larger story here around people. To me, that shows people wanting to live downtown. To me, that shows that there are local folks coming back into Burlington to invest, to make more vibrancy possible. We're on our path for doing that, and that takes time to put those pieces together. So I say this every time and pretty much everything I say, this is a moment for us to lean in it together and to figure out how to adapt and solve problems together. Truly, Jed, it is. And we've had conversations where, to the media, they choose how to frame things. I'm on media almost every single day of the week, and the questions and the line of questioning, they're not interested in the more complex story and the narrative Burlington of where we're headed. They're interested in really the negative, frankly, clickbait that they really want to push their headlines. lines. So it's really an invitation to all of you to tell the accurate story about the vibrancy of your small businesses, how we can invest in that with local folks coming in, stop using Amazon, start investing in local communities, coming downtown and investing in local Burlington. That's the story that I would really ask all of you to help push out in all of your channels, because that's what Burlingtonians and local Vermonters really need to hear about, supporting all of the downtowns in Burlington and around Burlington as well.
Hi, I'm Shannon Mitchell. I co-own Game Theory on Main Street. I just wanted to say it's so nice hearing from you all, and this is really important. Thanks for listening. It's clear to me that there needs to be a tactical shift in how this project's being managed, and I know we're talking about some very complex issues surrounding our overall Burlington city, but there are some very direct issues, like just not being able to cross the street. I live on South Union. I've been going downtown less. It's not because I'm scared. It's not because of anything other than it is just hard to get downtown. So I would really just encourage everyone to focus on that. And for my question, I just wanted to ask if there's anything that gives you all hope or excitement or enthusiasm from these other conversations you've been having with other cities or inspirations. I'd be really curious to hear, like, is there a path not yet taken that we could think about as a possible solution or something we could investigate?
Thanks, I really appreciate that question. Overall, you know, when we focus on what life will be like after this project, and I understand and appreciate Travis's statement about the present versus the future, so just to be clear about that, we're not approaching this with just rosy sunglasses about how great the street's going to be in a year or two. But in terms of feeling positive, I do feel positive about where the city's headed. I feel positive in a way. There's other indicators when there are vacancies on Church Street. We're seeing multiple people apply to fill those vacancies. So I do still see commitment to the city. In my discussions, to your question, in my discussions with other municipalities, we haven't heard of any super creative, groundbreaking thing that we haven't tried. Whether it's festivals or marketing or some large cities will even do the simplest things of, you know, encouraging people to attach balloons to their front door handles so that people who are driving by can notice them. A disruption is a disruption, unfortunately, you know, when you can't drive there or you can't park there. But we are continuing those conversations and also engaging with marketing teams from other cities to try and come up with something new. But I do appreciate the question, and just to let you know, we're not being complacent, like, oh, this is the way it is and we're just going to have to stick with it. We are trying to reinvent the wheel.
Others? We have about 5 minutes left.
I guess my question, we've been talking a lot about like the future of Burlington, and I think long-term this will be really good for the future of Burlington, but I do worry, right, like I think Burlington's economy is not incredibly diverse in some aspects, and a lot of our economy is dependent on industries that have like really razor-thin margins. And right, so to like bleed out like we are now, I'm worried, right, like our food industry, which is so vibrant, we have, you know, multiple James Beard nominees and James Beard winners, restaurants in this town. I'm worried, right, if these places start closing long-term, right, we might get out of this and we might have a beautiful street, but what if it's empty because Burlington is no longer maybe recognized as a really great like shopping plaza like Church Street or a really great foodie town, right? Like we're in competition with other small New England cities like Portland and whatnot. And I guess, right, the thing that I've been thinking about and maybe stressed about and worried about is just what if our restaurant industry and our retail industry doesn't survive? Because I feel like the Main Street closure and the inability to get into town, it feels like, I've been trying to think of an analogy, but maybe it feels like we're being starved and told, right? Well, when you get out, there's going to be a big feast for us. But I think what we're feeling, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think what we're feeling and what we're asking for is like, maybe rather than being starved and having a big feast, maybe we ration a little bit so we can stay afloat. And right, like, is that a major concern about, you know, these really razor thin margin business and industries that might not make it through, what that might look like at the end if we just don't have businesses to support people coming into town once the construction is done? And if we lose that reputation, you know, what are the plans to refacilitate that reputation on the back end of this? Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that question. I will let you know that the vast majority of my staff, that is their sole focus, is to support these small, locally owned businesses. We're very aware that restaurants have razor-thin margins. They have the thinnest margin of all retail-facing businesses. We are not anticipating the loss of all of them. That is not our goal. That is exactly what we are working on every day to try and ameliorate. I do want to address your statement about the diversity of the businesses. There is a diversity of businesses in town, including light manufacturing, tech startups. I will also acknowledge that our hotel, restaurant, and retail businesses are very much the bread and butter of what we have going in our economy right now. We are very much a tourism-based economy, so when you mention Portland, Maine, that sends a shiver up my spine because I'm very aware of communities that have a character similar to ours and would attract tourists as well. And this is something that we are extremely focused on, as well as the potential loss of Canadian visitors, which is something that we are also focused on as well. I would also like people to know that as the city embarks on their comprehensive planning strategy, we are also embarking on a comprehensive economic development strategy so that we can make our city economically resilient moving forward as well. But I do appreciate that, your comments and questions. Thank you.
All right, can we take two final questions?
Here and then the last one.
Hey there, guys. Two things. One, can we do something where we don't work on the Champlain, the South Champlain Parkway until, is there a way to delay that until Main Street's completed? And then the second thing is there money that the city is spending that can be maybe not used for this, you know, say any fluff that can be put towards marketing, festivals, things like that, that bring people in? Like, you know, there's always potentially some stuff that, hey, we don't need this right now. Our city is struggling with a budget. You know, do we start looking at the things and say, hey, we could save X amount by doing that?
I'll tackle the first question and then ask others to talk about the second question. You asked about the Champlain Parkway project and the Great Streets Main Street project. What I will say that those two projects are being very carefully coordinated. The two projects both have their own time-bound requirements, unfortunately, but that doesn't mean that we can't coordinate and make sure that the impacts are the least amount possible. That Champlain Parkway project, basically from Kilburn Street to Main Street, that will start later in April, will be largely complete this year. And we will then, you know, we're doing a lot of work currently, active construction off the right-of-way by 189. But the bulk of the work from Kilburn Street to Main Street will be completed in about 5 to 6 months this year in coordination with Great Streets. Does anybody else want to answer the?
And just in terms of, Yeah, fluff. I wish there was fluff. Like, I mean, I desperately wish there was a lot more fluff. I just want to reiterate, when I walked in, there was a $14 million budget gap, and we desperately looked for everything possible in order to close that gap and offer a balanced budget to council. There's another structural budget gap this year. Again, our general fund is just slightly north of $100 million. Those are sizable challenges. I mean, you all run your books. That's a very impossible task almost to come up with. We really don't have any other fluff. And again, I encourage folks to look at the city council presentation on Monday. We are going to see a reduction of staff. We're going to see a reduction of services just to balance our budget now with the core services that we're trying to keep online for the city. We're always double checking and making sure, but all 18 departments were asked to do 2 different deep dives into their departments in order to help us close this year's budget gap, let alone the work they did last year. For the project itself of Great Street, Main Streets? Yes. Okay.
So just to repeat the question, because you didn't have the mic, the question elaborated further, are there other amenities within the project that could be scaled back to be able to afford to help support these other public events? And to what Director Spencer mentioned a little earlier, this is TIF funding. It is a complex formula of municipal and education dollars that come in that are regulated by the legislature to be able to be used. And marketing, unfortunately, which is why Cara's group has gone off for their own grants, is not one of those that's eligible under that funding source. So there's not benches that we can sacrifice to have a larger festival under this funding source.
And we've been applying for grants to actually add more benches in, as we had to value engineer some benches out of the project to make the project work. Last question.
Just to end on a good note, I think that some really important things have been raised here today about what's going on in Burlington today. And I'm very pleased to see that the mayor is focusing on tourism and what that brings to this community. And I think that rather than focusing on the bad things of, you know, the drug use and the homelessness and everything, that affects our business as Burlington Segways. But why don't we focus on the good things? We made some great investments over the last few years in terms of creating a beautiful waterfront and a bike path that runs all the way out into the middle of the lake. Those are the things that I think that Burlington should be concentrating on, the good things, the things that we've invested in and are paying off in the long run. And just to mention that, there will be a PBS documentary coming out in the fall that will feature Burlington, Vermont, and our bike path, and our ferry, and our causeway all the way out into the lake. So let's concentrate on the good things at the same time. I think you're right, Mayor, that the complexion of downtown will change completely when 450 new homes are established down here. That's going to make a really big difference. So I feel like there's light at the end of the tunnel. Keep on going. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Rick. 3 messages, and then I'll turn over to the mayor to wrap things up. 1, the overall project is on time. We are still aiming for a November 2026 closure, completion. 2, we will continue to look for additional ways to mitigate. Continue to send us your ideas. We will do the one-on-ones. We'll continue to have public meetings. And 3, please look online for our resources. Sign up for the weekly emails if you're not on that. And thank you so much for being here.
I just want to thank the staff, Chapin, Laura, and Cara in particular, for really making sure that they're available to all of you. They've put countless hours into making sure we have points of engagement with all of you, the information we're trying to share, when we can adapt, how we are adapting. And I also want to just extend gratitude to all of you. You really did honor what I asked you to do in the beginning of this meeting. While this is a very tricky and very impactful topic, it could be easy to have this be turned into a bit of a shouting match in many ways. We didn't do that. And that, to me, is an expression of you all leaning in, of knowing what is most valuable is all of us working together to have hard conversations, to make sure we can hear your feedback, for you to be able to speak your mind, of course, but to do it in a way that doesn't cut each other down or replicate what is so toxic and harmful on the federal level. So I do want to appreciate that. I know that wasn't necessarily easy to do. And I look forward to more points of engagement with all of you. So thank you very much for coming.
I'm rushing off to another meeting momentarily, but I'm very glad to see the turnout and the exchange back and forth. And not deflecting the key issues, because they're all happening at the same time, and we can't solve everything for everybody, but we gotta keep something happening to keep the pulse of the city and the pulse of who is in the city right now functioning, giving back to the community. We got to keep that moving. And how do we do that? Yeah, thank you.
I thought today's meeting was semi-fruitful. I really appreciated the Department of Public Works and everybody making their time and making themselves available to us. I think maybe something that I was disappointed in, I think we spent a lot of time talking about all the things that the city has done, and while I appreciate all those efforts and it's no small task that they've done a lot of those things, I think the reason that businesses were really vying for this meeting is because it's become abundantly obvious that these things that are being done aren't quite translating to people walking in the doors like we need them to be. And so I would hope that everything that these business owners and stakeholders have said today is taken very seriously, and just for the everybody up there to be abundantly aware that we need something different. What we're currently doing, whether it's newspaper ads or any of that stuff in the marketing end, it's not translating. So I think we just need to work together and brainstorm and come up with a concrete plan on how to get people into the city. I think we have tried suggesting plans, or talked about a little bit about the one-way. It sounds like the people aren't loving that idea, and it would cost a lot, but I think something like that is good to talk about. Thank you.
Are you a business owner on Church Street or near?
No, I work at Cafe Hot, and I also work at Ski Rack, so I am a stakeholder in that aspect, in that I have worked full-time at Ski Rack, and I work full-time at Cafe Hot now while still working at Ski Rack. So I see this impact because both these businesses are on Main Street, and they are both really, really being impacted, and it's Cafe Hot, it is some of the best food I have ever had. I originally was a customer there, and I just started eating there so much that they hired me. So I think the food is incredibly unique, and I would hate for Burlington to lose a spot like Cafe Hot, or lose Honey Road, which is a James Beard nominee, and Poco is my favorite restaurant in town, and they're being impacted by this too, being on Main Street. So I just there's so many of these businesses that I have a close personal connection with, that I would be so sad if they were no longer here. So yeah, I just hope everything that we've said today is heard, and we can keep on keeping on.